NetScaler, and I guess whatever floats your boat at this point, right?
I'm kind of worried because who knows where it can go. Howdy, sir.
Guys, I'll act as mic runner. If you have any questions, throw your hand up.
Let's just go with the crowd first. What do y'all want to talk about first? And we'll pass it along with everybody here. Because this is y'all's Citrix user group. You know, we can pontificate about random cloudy things and security things and stuff like that and Citrix things. But you probably have something that might be itching you. Bueller? All right, Don, we may have to just use generic questions then.
What about the breaking Citrix up in a different company?
Ooh, breaking Citrix up in a couple companies. Who wants to take that one? Is that like a no comment kind of situation? Brian's going to go for it. It should be ready.
Can't really say a whole lot because it's just 2 weeks old, but it's not separate companies. It's all cloud software group. It's different business units.
Yep.
So it's still all one company. There's still one sales organization. So.
Well, I mean, I know for me, I'm excited that I don't have to say ADC over and over again. That
Yes,
took
it's
years to break
NetScaler.
me, and it's so easy to go back to NetScaler, right?
Yes,
I could say it
it
all
is
day long
NetScaler.
now. It's the best.
We never gave up NetScaler.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it still had it everywhere in the code, right? So depending on what you were doing in the CLI, there were still NetScaler non-ADC commands in there. All right. Well, anyone got anything else? Otherwise, I'm going to do some randoms. Well, let's go ahead and do. Don said it a second ago. AVD. What? We'll go with the real question instead of a fake one. Still good stuff though.
I don't know if it's a real question or not,
Ooh.
but several years ago, you all bought a company called, I think it was Melios, does that sound right? And you retired it. It was basically disk replication between PVS servers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For the SIF storage.
Yeah.
Yep.
Any chance of bringing that back or unretiring it or anything?
As far as I've seen, it lasted about a year or so. It got gobbled into the Citrix monster to never be seen again.
Yeah, they bought it and just.
Yeah, and I think why that is because MCS started taking off so much more. So the fanciness that we needed for Sandbolic, which was the name of that company, and Melio file system, which is what the thing was called, was becoming required less and less because so many people were MCS. But let's just do it here. How many people are using PBS still? Right? Yeah. And then how many MCS? Because sometimes it's good to run both, right? Because sometimes there's a machine catalog or a delivery group that it makes sense for. But yeah, I don't know where it went into the nether regions because I used it as when it was Sandbolic, when it was its own company. I had customers that bought it for that exact reason. Because is everyone here using like Robocopy to like sync their Vita stores? Like this is like the cat's meow for that, right? Like you didn't have to have 800 gigs to this PVS server, 800 gigs to that PVS server. And then you also didn't have the same failure points that you may have been used to of using Isilon or other clustered file systems where one node goes down, PVS server 3 just takes a crap, right? And it just stops streaming stuff. And you're like, what's going on? PVS server 1's fine, but 2's not, but one node's up and the other's not. So you thought it was supposed to be a HA file system. Melio file system, that product from Sambolic was totally that. You could do it, it could drop one ping and everything just keep going. So, I don't know. I wish it was a cool answer because I liked it. It was fun stuff. Yeah. All right, so we'll do the AVD thing. What does everyone think of AVD and how it integrates with Citrix or Citrix can layer on and the push that everyone's getting? Because I know I see it from every one client that I work at. I don't know. It's a. Y'all might know it, Dwayne. You gotta. What's some AVD love? None.
I have no clue.
No clue. No clue. Okay. All right. Well, I guess. So what I have seen is in doing a couple gigantic. I was talking to a couple people here today as I was on with a client in 2020, and they bought 15,000 licenses while I was on a go-to meeting by just going through the GUI at Cloud PC Enterprise, and I thought it was going to break it, and it didn't. It still took hours for the VMs to provision, right? It's not anything fast, but it worked. And so what I see is a lot of Microsoft reps obviously doing their thing to sell the Microsoft things. With the biggest predecessor is they're usually talking to the CFOs. They're not talking to the director of IT or even the CIO. They're talking to them because they're like, hey, AVD is free. Oh, it's free, all right, right? Like the broker part. So if we thought about it as Citrix, like that would mean that the DAS license is free, but you've got to still pay to run the VM somewhere in the world, right? And then with AVD, where can you run it? Only on Azure, right? And if anyone's been paying attention to AppV and it dying slowly in the next year or so, and Intune not being supported on virtual desktops unless they're in Azure, you know, there's a lot of things that they're saying. And then Office 2016 and Microsoft 365 saying that you can't run it on an RDS system. You can only run it on a multi-user Windows 10, Windows 11 operating system, which is only in Azure. So I've seen a lot of people that are huge Microsoft productivity users and have 10, 15, 30,000 licenses of Office E5 or something, and Microsoft's like, come on down. And so they have pilots. I've seen some big deployments. But compared to Citrix, without Nerdio and other bolt-on solutions like WVD Monitor and a couple things, it really is kind of laughable. It's like, I wouldn't even say MetaFrame, but like presentation server when it was getting updated way too much, right? Because you could see who's connected, but you had no details. So there's no Citrix Director competitor in there. So it's kind of a minimum viable product for some users, but that minimum viable is just enough for some. So I've seen it kind of been taken off, but I've also seen people like gravitating to more Citrix, gravitating to VMware and to AVD. So it's kind of those three flavors. And I've seen a couple big WorkSpot deployments, Nutanix Frames deployments, and that's kind of been the big ones that I've seen. So, but yeah, AVD is definitely changing things, because if they're talking to your CIOs and CFOs and they use the word free for that one part of it, yeah, that one customer is paying $182,000 a month for those virtual desktops. And if that's how they roll, right? And for them, it's, I guess, more better. I don't know. And they had a large deployment. They had a 30,000 user deployment that was on site. So, I don't know. It's interesting times. Anyone got some other cool questions?
I think one of the things that when we were planning this, we were going to pose a couple things to the crowd as far as, and one of the things that I had dealt with in the last couple weeks is, what happens when you're the one who pushes the wrong button and blows something up? And how do you deal with it? Are you honest about it? Do you try and cover it up? And you know, when you encounter that coworker that you know that they're trying to spin it because they don't want to come clean, and then you start to wonder about your network and you know, how do you guys handle when you're the one who pushes that wrong button?
Who has admitted they blew up something? Yes, embrace the explosions, right? It happens. Now, who has emptied an event log, right? You can do a slow one, right? Like, I didn't log on to that and reboot it or fix it. Okay. No one? Okay, there you go. All right. It's good.
Well, and I think that, oh, I'm sorry, Corey. Good.
Always make sure you have a change in.
Yeah, the change tickets. Who here has like the crazy change deployments where you have to have it in by Wednesday, you have your meeting on Thursday, it's 2.5 hours long, everybody does it, and there's always the one person that asks 42 questions per change. We're running Windows updates and we're rebooting it. What's your rollback plan? Reboot it, then uninstall the updates, then reboot again. Well, what happens if you can't roll back? Restore the snapshot, but what if you can't ping it? Unplug the network card, plug it back in. Like, it's like some of these people ask questions that just like it's death every time you put in a change, which makes us not want to put in a change and just live on the edge.
Try and sneak it in and hope no one notices.
Click, click. I got 2 servers. It should be fine, right? HA.
Famous last words. So, anything else? All right. Well, and when the other thing that we discussed, and we talked about this at the New York XL, it was just an interesting topic as far as a lot of people don't recognize the imposter syndrome when you're sitting here. And in fact, I was about to have it when you were talking about aid. I don't know what that is. So I was trying to decide, how am I going to, I'm just going to admit that I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh,
And, or am I going to try and fake it through? And it's a tough thing sometimes when you're sitting in front of decision makers and people who sign the checks, and you're trying to make sure that, you present like all of these things. And sometimes you don't feel it on the inside, and
Well,
it can be really nerve-wracking.
And IT, as all of us know, is such a broad industry, right? It would be like if you were a nurse and it's like you're in the ED and now you need to go deliver a baby, then you need to go give chemotherapy, then you need to go check someone in at just registration and understand how to do the IDC-10 codes. Like, we all have to deal with that, because how many people are there anyone here that just has a Citrix deployment to give hugs and kisses to, or does everyone also have Exchange or AD or SQL or ESX or virtualization? Everybody's wearing more than one hat, right? Yeah, so I mean, it makes it tough because we're all supposed to be the experts of all the things, and that's impossible. It truly is. And you just can't be everything for everyone and all those things.
Well, and that has to be okay.
Yes.
You have to still feel good about yourself, and,
Yep.
and tell yourself, you can, as long as you know where to look things up and the people to ask, usually you can survive most of those moments.
For me, especially when you know the people that you're talking to, I didn't get into IT until I was 30. I'll be 40
Late bloomer.
I'll be 40 this month, and I just became an architect, and only being in 10 years and going back to talk to like Brandon Mitchell, somebody I've known, and even though I'm dug into a lot of technologies, sometimes I feel like it's still over my head.
Yep.
But yeah, and then with all your friends and family, if they know you're a computer guy, you better know everything about it.
Yeah, you're resetting everybody's passwords. You're telling everyone to reboot, then call me back, right? Yeah, that's what happens when you're the IT person in any family. Brian, you got any nuggets?
Yeah, I'd have to say from my experience, if you are constantly trying to show that you are the expert in everything, you're a liar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
If you aren't admitting that you don't know something, then somebody's eventually going to figure out that you tend to stream the BS instead of admitting that you don't know something.
Yeah.
And I spent 20 years as a consultant before coming to Citrix. I wouldn't have survived that if I took that tack.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's when we all have to do that. And then the good thing I think that's good about our industry compared to even if we were comparing ourselves to nurses again, is there is so many free online things for every aspect of our IT careers, right? From the Citrix, there's AVD classes, there's Microsoft. Everything for every Microsoft exam, there is people that have 1, 2, 3, 4 hour videos that you can just watch in your jammies and learn about something else and new. So that's good. You don't have to pay anyone to go to any of those types of colleges and a lot of that stuff. You can get so much online. ITT Tech does not like to hear that, right? But it's kind of the truth. You can cut your teeth. If you've got a decent computer and a lab and the internet, you can learn how to do almost anything in our industry, which is great, which means you can always change. When we talked about career development, it's where you can also change your trajectory to that too.
I think too, a lot of these days that companies are recognizing education, at least for Navient, we have LinkedIn with our licenses. Microsoft has a lot of education things that are built into like the E5 licenses. And then Citrix also. I mean, there's tons of training out there nowadays.
Yeah, does anyone know that like your Citrix licenses, depending on where you're at in your life, have free training? Like that you can go on Citrix's
like
website?
Actual training, not
like real deal Holyfield stuff, right? Yeah, there's some great training that's associated by you having Citrix licenses that most people aren't aware of.
So what is ADD?
Man, this is a tough one. So it used to be called something called RDMI, right? Which was basically their way of making a broker that was smarter than the remote desktop gateway and broker that they had before. And so then it became Windows Virtual Desktop, and then they had to throw a cloud in it, so it's Azure Virtual Desktop. So it comes in two main flavors, Cloud PC Business, which is made for 300 user or less deployments, like that size. I just had a client that thought that's what they wanted, but there's no customizations. Like you just get Windows 10, 11, and it's just like off, nothing else. You can't manage the device unless you buy Intune for it extra, right? So depending on where you're at in your Microsoft journey, if everybody has E1 licenses, that ain't gonna work. So then you buy Microsoft Cloud PC Enterprise Edition, which the sky is the limit there. The key that hurts most people is we have to run our workload in the cloud, right? What does that mean when we run our workload in the cloud? That back-end application better be in the cloud right beside it. Because if it's ET phoning home to your client server application, to your data center, with your express route and your VPN and everything else, your performance is gonna be like this all the time. It's not gonna be consistent like we're used to. And depending on which region you're in, your consistency varies too. Like US East, like East 1, so busy. They run out of instance types all the time. So you have to really pick a data center, and it kind of is what it is. So with that Cloud PC Enterprise, then you have a Windows Marketplace gallery where you can say, I want a Windows 11 with Microsoft 365 already installed. So that's like real sweet. So if you have a proof of concept and if your users just need Microsoft Office and a Windows operating system, you can be ready for thousands of users in just a couple hours, right? Because it's gonna take a little bit for it to bake. And then you can also make custom images. And then you use Intune, Microsoft Endpoint Manager, so endpoint.microsoft.com to put packages, sequence things, and that's where, you know, CUGC sponsors like Numicent and Liquidware with FlexApp and stuff like that, you can layer applications into it. You can use FS Logics to mask things. Who's here using FS Logics? Like, it's become kind of pretty, like you got Winders and you're delivering apps, like it has become that glue together thing. But so AVD is free, the broker part of it, but you still have to be a licensed Microsoft user license, and you still have to run your workload in the data center. So that's its biggest catch-22. So if you're not chugging the Azure Kool-Aid, AVD is not for you. And I work with a couple big clients that will never run anything in Azure, right? Or never run anything in AWS because of their business conflicts. So in those situations, it makes the decision pretty easy for them because then AVD is either in or out, just by that where it's located. So and Nerdio, if you haven't heard of that, basically it's cloud management so that you can power on and power off VMs and have capacity management. So Cloud PC is flat priced, and then if you want to make real Azure virtual desktops and make VMs, then it will do that power capacity management for your pool. So anybody that runs AVD of more than, say, 500 users, you want Nerdio with it. You don't want to buy it without it because it can save you so much money, because it can deprovision and reprovision licenses, unallocate, do all that smart stuff that Citrix has been doing for a long time with machine catalogs and delivery groups. But, you know, it's the Microsoft thing of the day. Xboxes are cool. Yeah, so Windows 365 is AVD, right? So Windows 365 is just that license bundle that means the user has a license of Microsoft Windows plus whatever level of Office productivity suite, OneDrive, Teams, all that. So it's a bundle of all those things. So Microsoft 365 E5 means that user has all the things, right? And so that means they don't have a virtual desktop unless you buy it for them, but then you save $2 per user per month because you have that big license. So if anybody here is running like iGel thin clients, you have to pay because you're basically paying that little VDA license, if anyone's used to that from the old days, because it's a non-Windows device accessing it. So it's part of your planning you've got to figure out.
I'd be curious who has the oldest infrastructure in here. I'm 2203. We're going to sit there for a little while.
Yeah,
Due to licensing.
How many people have got to 2203 this year? Like it's moved from 1912? Is 1912 still the king in the room?
LTSR.
715? Nah, that's...
Wow, seriously?
Yeah. So is it the server operating system that's holding you back? Like the 2012 R2? Like you have to have that VDA? Yeah. So... Oh,
6'5".
this guy.
Wow, you might be the winner.
Hold on.
Are you
Is there
seriously
any-
telling the security guy that?
Yeah, man, living the dream. You know, the most published application for a couple years was Internet Explorer 7. So, you know, that was a real deal.
We still have our delivery controllers on 1912 because we have Azure, so we're doing hybrid. And if you go past 1912, it will break that.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for the guy that has 6'5", Mr. Roger here, I mean, this MetaFrame XP book from Brian Madden will go well. It pairs like a fine wine with
Unbelievable.
6'5". Yeah. 5.0 on 2003?
Is that presentation
Ooh, that's my
server still?
jam. I
Is
got
that
my-
still presentation
Yeah,
server?
that's presentation server. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
That's when you had to like uninstall and reinstall it kind of all the time to get the ICA listener to pay attention. Oh,
I can
times
make
were
it-
simple.
I can make a lot of people cringe.
Uh-oh, what's going on?
When I started, 7X was out.
Yeah, that's.
I never messed with any.
Yeah,
Metaframe
he's
or
been
Prism.
living on FMA his
I'm a
whole
baby.
life. He's an FMA babe. Yeah, he doesn't know about the
I'm sorry,
IMA
I started
goodness
with
and-
WinView.
and the IMA cache cleanup commands that you had to run on the command line and hope it didn't explode your deployment every single time. Those are pucker
Yep.
factors.
Nope.
Yeah.
Speaking of pushing the wrong button.
Yeah, you can push a lot of wrong buttons in that one, for sure. Anybody got anything else? Any other nuggets?
How much time do we have?
We got 2 days left, so.
Maybe for Citrix, I don't know if this 6.5 you were able to look at a user and see what applications and desktops they have, but not in 7X. I was just curious if
Yeah, no,
in the cloud you could.
yeah,
kind of
you
bring
could
that back.
see if someone is in like a published desktop or a published application, but you couldn't see the processes they were running unless you use like sysinternals or something
No,
like
I want to know like what they have access to.
that. Oh,
So especially comparing to another user or something like that.
yeah,
I've got scripts for that.
yeah.
Anything else? Maybe certifications? We had a discussion of, do you find certifications of value or?
Yeah, who is a certified Citrix gangster in here? Who has some certified things? Everybody else is living the dream. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes, I mean, how many places would pay for your Citrix certifications if you took it? Because I know some places will, and some places are like, no.
They'll pay
you-
for the test, but not any
Yeah,
classes.
if you pass too, right?
Yeah,
And then that
yeah.
puts a little bit more pressure on you, and then those multiple choices start looking a little more difficult. So it's becomes tough when it's your own money slinging around. But I can tell you, you know, if we're talking about career development, in some cases, if any of y'all are customers and you're trying to get into maybe the consulting world, that's one of those things that you may kind of have to get. Because some people will want you to be certified, quote, accredited, like you know what you're doing. But in some cases, you can get away with that without that too. And if you work at a partner, then you may have to get very specific ones because there's requirements from Citrix, from Microsoft, from Cisco, from everything that sells IT things that you must have this or you must have that to sell this or get this discount. It's also there.
There was a point that I had every certification Citrix offered when I was a partner.
Yeah, I think I was close in the 4550 days because that was the CCIA,
Yep.
but then I didn't ever get my CCI, like the instructor for
I was
classes.
that too.
Yeah, so that was, I wanted to do that, but I just never had time.
I had my C&E.
Yeah, oh, yeah, any Novell people out here? Yeah. No, you, Novell, don't worry about that.
Yeah.
You don't worry about that. It's all good.
What is that?
Yeah.
Novell who?
Yeah. How easy is it to get certified in Citrix? Nowadays, yeah, well, before you take a class, whatever, go to, I think it's, I can't remember how it is. I think it's certifications.citrix.com or learning.citrix.com, and that'll tell you the code name for whatever certificate you're going after. Google that and YouTube it. Watch those videos, listen to the people that talk about it, and you may gain enough knowledge, especially at those lower levels, to be able to definitely just take that test and knock it out. And on the website, it shows you how they stack on top of each other, right? For the CVAD portion, at least, right? so that you know you get this one, and then you get this one, and you get that one. So, yep, for sure.
I know for me, I got the CCAV. I'm a client or a customer, so how I found that they've been good for me is pretty much changing companies. I worked at Kroger, got my CCAV, helped me get to Navient, but growing in Navient, I don't feel like the certifications are very needed in my environment.
Yeah, it's all just mileage, and that's why I think on-the-job training and your experience in IT and what you've done is really what makes you. I do a lot of mentorship for people as a security nerd, people that are trying to go through college for like a computer science degree and then wanting to get into cybersecurity. And I'm like, do you want to like code all day? No. Okay, well then stop that, right? There's like no point. Computer science is not going to help you in this. You're just going to spend $50,000, $100,000, $200,000 and be that far behind before you start your first job. Whereas you could go work as a SOC analyst and start making a little bit of money now and learning about security and just the practical. You don't have to know the OSI model to be a security nerd or OSI model to be a EUC nerd. You just need to know what you need to know for that specific thing. So, yeah. Nobody else? Uh-oh, Don's got one. This is going to be good.
Well, it's something that you and I have talked about briefly, and it's a subject that's near and dear to my heart, which is Synergy. People here in this room, how many people have attended a Synergy in the past, right? Most of you guys have. I mean, Synergy has always been a very big thing. It's been a big part of my career. I mean, I can remember I was there when Mark T pulled out his personal phone and actually plugged it into the demo stack. That was a real thing. That was a real personal phone.
I remember when a bunch of people joined the GoTo meeting that they were demoing on,
they
and there
left
was people's
the
faces
meeting ID
all
at
over.
the top. Did you join it? So, you know, that's a big discussion going on right now is what are we going to do and what is that going to look like? And how important is that to this group of people to be at a Synergy? And it's not just the deep dives and the breakouts and the certifications, but it's also the social aspect of it. So is that an important thing going forward to do a Synergy in person, or is it not as important as it once was? I guess that's just kind of a general question. Is it key? Does it matter?
I mean, I know most of us did not want to get out of our jammies today to go anywhere, right? Like, work from home is like...
Well, it's the first time
makes it
you've been in
tough.
public in 3 years, you said, I think, or something, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so...
Well, I mean, I've been going since 2008. My first one was in Houston. I think it's very important, and it builds the community. And
Right.
The reason that a lot of us know each other
That's right.
are these events. And, you know, sometimes I think the social aspect of it, one, it makes you it re-energizes you and makes you more interested in learning technology. Oh, you know, Patrick's working on this and whatever, and you kind of learn these new things. And so I think it's incredibly important, and I do hope, even if they rebrand it or however they may bring it back, that they do.
Me too. And that's kind of the discussion is it's maybe instead of just inviting 8,000 people, maybe it's more of a targeted thing. Maybe it's specific people that are going to, but it is important. At least it is to me, and I think hopefully it is to a lot of people in this room. It is to you, Patrick.
Yeah, well, I think Sarah hit it on there. Is the fellowship, right? Is you are all not on your own. Every one of you has printing problems, Citrix is slow problems, update problems. I don't know how to reboot that. Why did that explode? What ADC firmware should I be on this week, right? Like, we all have the same struggles, and that's where those conferences really come in, because it's like we can talk about bourbon and barbecue and then be like, yeah, Citrix printing is still better, but man, the VDA upgrades, I mean, almost every time I've got to restore a snapshot. Like, it never upgrades clean, or it'll uninstall and leave some nuggets, and then it says product's already installed. So we've all been in the trenches together, and so that's what I've always loved about it, was that part.
And to build off of that, the side conversations, and you know, a lot of times we can email or text somebody, but you know, we're all busy.
Mm-hmm.
And when you got them face to face, you're able to brainstorm and bounce ideas off of each other. And I've fixed a lot of stuff in my environment from just talking to you guys in person.
Well, because there's so many ways to do the same thing. I mean, that's one of the things. I had never heard of BIS for like just a couple of years ago. And now every single client that I work with, we use it as their seal script, whether it's Horizon, Citrix, or AVD, because it's just run a PowerShell script and the things get done. It cleans the WinSXS directory, right? It de-identifies the SCCM client. It de-identifies a bunch of AVs. So it makes it easy, and it was like, I would have never, ever heard about it if I wouldn't have physically been at a conference, because it's not like it's on a webinar that often, right? So if I wouldn't have physically been there, I would have never even heard of it. It varies, right? Yeah, ADC version we should be on this week. We'll get back to you next week, right? That's the answer. Yeah, so if you're in, who's 13.1-ish? Like, okay, but then hopefully mostly 13s, right? Mostly 13s or 12.1s? 12.1, don't raise your hand, right? 13.0 should be where you're at, hopefully. Yeah. So that's like 87 something right now.
So the data point I'm bringing back is it's critical to the success of customers and partners and admins. I mean, it is.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Oh, this was our other things. Okay, NetScaler, check. AVD, check. Cloud, career development. Chrome OS Flex.
I think you brought that up, didn't you?
I think I was talking about that.
I think you threw that one out there.
I think that may have been me. Yeah, secure browsers, basically. So Citrix has their Citrix Secure Browser. Edge has a product that's like that. Google has a product like that. Island has a product, and Talon Security. Those are kind of like the 5. And I know I'm writing like a white paper to compare all 5 of those, like pros and cons. I'm waiting for some agreements from a couple of them so I can kind of hack the planet on it and not do like a pen test or anything, but at least do bad things I shouldn't try to do and make sure I don't get like arrested for it, because that would be awkward. But yeah, anybody that has corporate enterprise applications that need to be delivered and need to be secured, we have, in many cases, a lot of us have published applications, and we'll publish a web browser, and then we hopefully control the Citrix session policies so things can't come out. But now with like things with Workspace app and app protection, you can publish something like a Salesforce and no one can get data in or out of it. And then depending on how you're doing SAML and authentication for Salesforce and Citrix, the user doesn't even know the password to Salesforce. So they can't just go on their phone and log into Salesforce and start doing stuff and download all your data. So if you've got web applications that run your world, this enterprise secure browser space is very, very cool stuff. But it's another thing to manage. Some of them are hosted options where you just do a username, password, you launch a virtual application, or it's a Chrome, hardened Chrome package that you configure that gets deployed to your endpoint. And so Workspace app has Chromium in it now, so it has that already kind of built in. So it's a cool space for anybody that's into it.
So we have an interesting use case at my law firm for that. We run Secure Browser and offer it to a certain amount of attorneys that are in the entertainment industry because they need to get to sites that we don't want running on our desktop.
I would say so, yes. Yeah.
And, we chuckled at it when it was first brought up and asked, and we were like, no, they represent, the porn industry needs representation too, so.
Yeah, there's copyright claims on the beginning of the video, It's still part of it. It's legit business. It's the thing that won Betamax versus VHS, right? Yeah. It steered the whole boat of the whole world, which tape we're going to use. And then I guess even HD, DVD, and Blu-ray when that was going around too. All right, I think we'll just go ahead and call this one El Duno unless anybody's got anything, and that'll give us kind of 2 minutes back as we get ready, because I think the next person is it the Google? It is the Google. Is the Google team, are you ready to do Google things? Do you got your pewter, or you just do Word stuff? Okay. All right, cool. Thank y'all so much for coming up.